What conversation or interaction with a physically normal stranger left you wondering if you'd just talked to something non-human or supernatural, like an angel/demon/ghost/alien/time traveler, etc.? One evening in winter I didn't leave work till almost 7 p.m. So I was walking home and thought, fuck it, I'll cut through the park to get home quicker. Even though it's really poorly lit, a couple of minutes into the park I could hear a group of people behind me and in front of me and was thinking, fuck, I'm going to be jumped. Up ahead there was a lamp post with the CCTV camera on it, so I thought I'll stop there and at least I'll get jumped on camera. As I stood beneath this light, this really tall woman jogged over and stopped next to me. I'm 6 feet tall and she was way taller than me. She asked me, is it okay if I walked with you? And I was like, sure, okay, I guess. She walked with me to the edge of the park, talking about how dodgy the park was at night. As soon as we got to the edge of the park, she told me to have a good night, then jogged back into the park. It was a really weird experience. I felt certain I would have been mugged or something if she wasn't there. I walked through that park every day for about a year and never saw her again. I was working in Florida as a manager in a large chain of automotive dealers. I was on the service side and dealt with the customers who had the most difficult issues or were upset. One day an older man came in and I went for a quick test drive to assess his concerns with the vehicle. He was calm and polite, a very easygoing person. After speaking for a few minutes he asked me if I liked magic. He then proceeded to start talking about where I was from. He didn't ask a single question. He just began to talk. He narrowed down the area until he was within a 20-minute drive from the hospital I was born in. That hospital is an 18-hour drive from where that dealership was. After a few minutes he said, but you didn't live there very long. Moved south to the city of _ right? He was absolutely spot on. Then he started rubbing his eyes and kinda humming. He asked me how long I had lived in Norway, then narrowed it down to the city I lived in for 8 years. At this point I'm thinking he's some kind of weirdo who has done a background check on me, but how would he know where I had lived while overseas? He said, do you believe in magic? Now, on the return drive to the dealership I was running every possible scenario through my head. Did a friend set me up? How did he know the name of the city in Norway? This story is hard to explain, but I still get shivers when I think of it. He was a customer I was helping out. Honestly, there was nothing that really stood out with him. He was handsome, but in a normal way. He dressed normal, talked normal, was blandly friendly, as you are with strangers. Just a normal upper-middle-class type guy. The only thing that really stood out was his blue eyes. Not in a goofy supernatural type way. He just had very, very blue eyes. But for some reason he made every hair on my neck stand on end. Alarm bells were going off in my head like crazy. All I wanted to do was hide. I have never felt this way, before or since. Even when I was followed home by someone, I have never felt such gut-deep you are in danger as I did with this guy. After ringing him through, he reached out to shake my hand. This is not common at all here, but out of politeness I took it and shook, and I instantly got so nauseous I almost gagged. The moment I got nauseous he just held my hand and smiled, and something in that smile made me absolutely sure he knew what I was feeling and he enjoyed it. I'm not religious in any way, but I remember thinking in that moment, oh fuck, is this the devil? After he left I was still so sick feeling I had to go to the back and sit down. I'm not sure if he was a serial killer or what, but to this day I have never experienced something even close to that encounter. I absolutely felt bone deep certainty that I was in some sort of danger. Okay, this is creepy weird. I had a similar encounter when I worked as a cashier at Walmart. I was the only one working a register, as it was later in the night. I had a line full of people and one supervisor close by doing her thing. I looked up, and saw this guy about 2 or 3 people behind my current customer and he gave me an instant feeling of unease. I saw this black fog type aura around him. I have never seen auras of any types prior to this or after. I kept watch on him or of the corner of my eye and could feel him just watching me. When I looked up again to take care of customer number 2, it was weird guy instead. Even stranger was, No one else was in line anymore and I could no longer find my supervisor. The store was quiet. All I remember about this guy is he had longish brown hair, average height and looks, and the strangest blue eyes I've ever seen. I looked at him to ask what I could do for him, and before the words even completely left my mouth, he stated he needed a specific brand of cigarettes. The whole time he had this knowing grin in his face. When I turned away from him to get his cigarettes, everything went black. I couldn't see anything for what seemed like several minutes, but I'm sure it was only a few seconds at best. All I could think was, oh God, this man is in my head and completely fucked my mind. When I finally turned back to him, he just laughed this weird laugh like he knew what I was thinking. He looked at me again and just walked away. As soon as he was gone, everything went back to normal. My supervisor was back, a line full of customers again. All of it. I felt off for several days after this encounter and had nightmares about that guy's eyes following me and telling me he was always watching. Many years ago I was working as a receptionist, secretary at a professional firm. One day this guy came in, older guy, thin, wire-rimmed glasses, had a German accent. The alarm bells went off. He never said or did anything inappropriate, but my skin was crawling and I couldn't get away from him fast enough. I ducked out to fetch the owner who would be meeting with this potential client. It wasn't a long meeting and after the client left I told my boss what I'd been feeling around that guy. He believed me but couldn't relate as he didn't get any weird vibes off the old guy. Thankfully we never saw him again. That has never happened again and I often wonder what he did in his spare time to carry so much fear and negativity around him. I've often wondered if Ted Bundy was like my customer. Handsome in a way that helps you trust him, but not in any great way memorable, but also having this sinister undercurrent. It's always rather unsettling when you meet someone that just screams off to you. My husband is one of the only people I've told this story to, because he had been telling me about meeting contract killers. Long story, was at a backyard BBQ in a third world country, and how he felt very on guard around them, and could tell something was just not quite right and only after learned about their profession. I think it's always best to trust your gut when it comes to this stuff. Ugh, so spooky, especially knowing that A, there are a lot of killers active that we don't know about, and B, we only know about the killers when we find bodies, who know who's doing what out there and are just really good at hiding it. More specifically, I believe Bundy was said to be able to change his face, to someone like Anne Rule, who he went to college at Washington with. She felt comfortable enough to take a shower in the same house as him in the middle of the night when they were volunteering for a local politician's campaign together. He apparently never acted aggressive or anything to her, and in fact offered to walk her to her home at night. Meanwhile, others including family said he would get creepy very quickly and go from comfortable to not. Almost as if he looked played to his advantage, as you say. I don't believe in auras in any traditional sense, but every so often I'll see a certain glow or color about a person. I see it as part of the brain's wonderful plastic ability to interpret information, as opposed to a physical reality. But one day I was waiting tables at a restaurant and a man with I can only describe as a dark cloud shadow walked in. He almost looked like an animated villain. It stuck out to me so much. There was a slight misunderstanding at the beginning of our interaction and he was going to try to get me fired. I used every ounce of my customer service strength and ability to turn him around, to the point where he liked me. He then proceeded to order a steak extra well done. The man terrified me. His eyes were beady and empty. His smile was crooked. He saw a chance to hurt me and he took it. But before all else I saw that shadow hang over him. I later heard rumors from several people that he was involved in sex trafficking on one side or the other, and boy, do I believe it. As a child, I used to play outdoors with my childhood best friend Kyle. We would either knock on each other's doors and ask, "Can come out to play?" Or we would hear each other in our respective front yards and come outside. One day when I was about 10, I walked outside into my driveway because I thought I heard Kyle outside. I called out to him and the little girl about my age came from around the back of the house instead. I learned her name was Amaya. She told me she was going to be there all day because she's waiting for her mom to pick her up. I asked her if Kyle was coming, but she said number. Kyle didn't technically live next door, his grandmother did, so it's not uncommon for him to not be on the block for days because he's at home. So, we spent the whole day playing. I can't remember the exact time, but I know it was from the hottest point in the day to when the sun almost began to set. It was the peak of summer, so that meant we were outside for hours. We spent the first half of our day inside of my garage playing because it was cool, and as outside began to get cooler we moved our shenanigans out into my driveway. After a couple of hours she said that she had to go because her mom was coming soon. I hugged her, really sad that my new cool friend was leaving, but I figured she must be related to my neighbors in some way so I'd be seeing her again. The next day, Kyle's mom dropped him off at his grandma's, so I came outside to play. I asked him when Amaya was coming back. Kyle said, "Who is Amaya?" I thought he was just being annoying, but by us going back and forth I realized he really didn't know who Amaya was. I told him she had on a blue top and blue khakis yesterday, and her hair was in 3 large twists with pink bobos. Kyle insisted he didn't know who I was talking about. I asked his brother, who was 5 years his senior. He didn't know who I was referring to either. A little creeped out, I asked my parents, wasn't I playing with a girl yesterday? My mom and dad had no idea what girl I was talking to. They thought I was outside in the garage playing by myself. As a last resort, I asked Kyle's grandma. She told me there was no little girl there yesterday. She was home with her husband and she doesn't know a little girl by that name. To this day, Kyle swears he doesn't know who I'm talking about. I don't know what to make of the situation. I know I played outside with that girl. We jumped rope, we blew bubbles, we played hand numbers. No one knows a little girl named Amaya, but I spent the day with her. Back in 1997, I was aged 8. I shared a room with my younger brother who was 4 at the time. We used to have our grandparents over for dinner most nights and it wasn't uncommon for them to stay long after we had gone to bed. They would come and kiss us goodbye in bed when they were going to leave. This one summer's day, I woke up during the night and saw my granddad. It wasn't unusual like I said. I said, "Hi Granddad, are you leaving now?" He came and sat on my bed and said, "Yes, I'm saying goodbye for now." He kissed me and then went and sat on my brother's bed and said kissed him as well. Then he left. My childhood intuition picked up that he was a bit sad. Next morning, I went into the kitchen to find my mom crying. She told me that my granddad died last night of a sudden heart attack. I said, "How can that be? I saw him last night. He came and said goodnight to me." My mom said that my grandparents left shortly after I went to bed last night. I also remembered that my grandpa said goodbye and not goodnight. It was quite a shock, but at the same time a little comforting too. I don't remember a lot from my childhood, but this is a memory that I won't forget. This makes me sad, because it brings back the day that my grandmother passed in 2017. We were birthday twins, same birthday, and had always shared a special connection. It was late summer, and I was with my friend on a beach trip for her 21st birthday. Out of nowhere that day, I had this overwhelming urge to talk about my grandmother. It was like every person, place, and conversation brought back intense memories of her that I desperately wanted to talk about. The entire 5-hour drive home, I couldn't think of anything to say that didn't involve her. I get home, and my parents look so incredibly sad. They inform me that my grandma had died that morning, but they were waiting until I got home to tell me. It was unreal. I know it's nowhere near the level of visually seeing her, like you did your grandfather, but it really felt like she was somehow trying to tell me goodbye, as if she wanted me to have just one more day full of happy memories of her before they became tinged with sadness. I'm misty-eyed right now as I type this, so I'm really glad I got that last day to laugh and relish those memories in the way she would have wanted. I'm so sorry for your loss. I do often think our loved ones do try and contact us in some way. Maybe she was with you and your subconsciousness knew it, which is why your grandmother was so much in your mind and talk that day. Losing a loved one is never easy, but if you can take a little bit of peace from their passing, such as your day of memories, it does help with the healing process. I think it was her way of telling you that everything will be okay. You have your memories, and even though she is gone, you both enjoyed the good time spent with each other with no regrets. My grandma tells the story of how during the night, my grandpa would not stop tossing and turning in the bed, to the point that it woke her up several times. Finally, she asked if there was anything she could get him to help him rest. He said, "It doesn't matter, I'm not going to get out of this bed tonight." At the time she took it to mean he wasn't going to do anything extra to help himself get more comfortable, go to the bathroom, get a glass of water, etc. It sort of made sense to her when she woke up the next morning and found him dead in the bed. My grandmother similarly knew that she wouldn't get out of bed again. She was hospitalized because her body was failing and was in and out of lucidity. I had flown into town when she was initially hospitalized, but she was since stable and being transferred to an end-of-life care facility. She was waddling on about how she was going to die and asking me to help her, so to comfort her, I told her to rest her and I'd be back in the morning. Her response, "Well, I won't be." We got a call at 3 a.m. that she had passed in her sleep. I fully believe that people can know that they are going to die, especially when they are elderly or very sick. I don't know if I find it comforting or sad, but I think it's a very real phenomenon. I live in a small town, with very few black people around, Central Europe. I was pretty down because of a girl, and went for kebab. While I was standing in a queue for kebab, in the pub right next to it, there was a woman that caught my attention, because of two things. Initially because of her race, that's just uncommon to see there, another the fact that I for sure never seen her before. Despite living in this small town my entire life and going around this pub every day. Another thing I noticed was that she didn't order anything, she just sat there by the table alone. Then I ordered my food, and while waiting for it, the woman leaned over the fence that separates kebab place from the pub, looked directly at me and offered me an ice cream. I accepted the offer, and immediately after that she looked me in the eyes, smiled a bit and calmly said, "I love you." Then as I received my kebab, I turned around where she was, and she was gone, vanished as quickly as she appeared. I inspected the ice cream, and it seemed okay and package was intact. It was delicious. TLDR, unknown, but very kind stranger gave me ice cream, said "I love you" when I needed it, and then vanished. There was this kid I used to hang out with when I was around 8 and it still obsesses me. He wasn't from my school, and neither was he in the only other school in town. One day he just showed up at the end of school day and played with my friends and I, just like kids do. He was really nice, polite, clean, but he just seemed to have no family. He would never talk about his parents and avoided conversations about family. There was some sort of orphanage nearby, but friends who lived there said that he didn't live with them. He was weird, but in a weird way. He was nice and fun, yet really mature for a 8-year-old kid. He had this emotional intelligence, he understood people, talked very well about the others' feelings but barely showed his. He had this strange aura. He would start really deep conversations that were oddly deep for kids our age. He also had a smooth voice, at an age when most of the kids have a voice that tempt adults to make them mute. One day, one of my friends lost his grandma and he found oddly accurate words to reassure him. That scene is still in my head to this day. On the other hand, he knew no cultural stuff. Every film, cartoons, comics, TV shows, he wouldn't know. We showed him stuff like WWE, Dragon Ball and other manga, anime, and he became really fan. The only times he would act childish was when we wanted to know more about his life. He would answer funny and barely comprehensive things like some kids do. Today I'm 100% sure he did that on purpose. I really looked up to him, although he was no leader or whatever. He was weird in a cool way, or cool in a weird way. At an age when a weird kid is just a weird kid no one wants to FW, he felt out of this world to me. My mother had a strange feeling about him, and years later I asked her about him and she told me that she couldn't do anything because he was so nice and polite. But to her he wasn't a child and seemed really weird. He just hung out with my friends and I for about a year. I have great memories with him and I feel like he taught us much. One day he just stopped coming to play in our neighborhood and no one saw him again. I have more anecdotes about him, and as time passes more things feel wrong, or to me. I have a deep feeling that I met someone too special or whatever. I'm not that much into supernatural stuff yet I could start believing in a lot of things just because of this kid. Edit, to try to answer some of your theories.